Hello, this is Chris Kinman again. I am speaking to you from my home, and I'm out on the porch. And while I'm here, sometimes you hear the sound of some machinery working, and you can hear the sound of cars passing by. You hear the sound of what it is to live in a city. So I've decided that it's perfectly appropriate that these sounds be in the background as I'm sharing with you. As I've mentioned before, I come to you from the unceded territory of the Syilx people, also known as the Okanagan people, and I am grateful that I can be on their land. Today, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about Jacques Derrida and his influence upon my work. And I decided to do it by looking at one particular book he wrote. It's called The Politics of Friendship. And most of Jacques Derrida's books are collections of essays, but this is a book that he wrote as a whole book. And this book really contains so much of what Jacques Derrida is all about, and certainly what he means to me. And so the book is built upon a phrase that is attributed to Aristotle. And the phrase is filled with contradictions. And it goes like this: "Oh, my friends, there is no friend." Derrida called this an aporia, very similar to what Gregory Bateson called the double bind. And it is where you're forced into a contradiction, where there seems to be no simple resolve. For Bateson, this was the double bind. It's expressed in a way that was almost misogyny, almost mother-blaming, where they're looking at schizophrenia, and it was basically seen as the mother putting a double bind upon the child. If you read further writings by Gregory Bateson, you see him distancing from that. And you see, it makes me wonder if he really wrote it to begin with, if it was one of his colleagues more involved in it. But in later writings, he saw the double bind as something that was ubiquitous to human experience, and something that, while it is difficult and troubling, it is also a source of creativity and a source of possibilities, something that breaks our conventional thought. I've searched to see if there's a connection in Derrida's writings to Gregory Bateson. I've not found one. There certainly is with Deleuze and Guattari, but I can't find one with Bateson. But the aporia, the double, is very similar to the double bind. So it's built upon that place where friendship and politics meet. Oh, my friends, there is no friend. The first concept that I get from Derrida in this book is the concept of the philo, or fraternity. Philo is, you've got Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love. It's about brotherly love. It's about fraternity. It's about connection with and for the brother. Now, what's most obvious about the philo is, and fraternity, is where is the sister? Where are the women in this model? They are excluded. There's many exclusions in the fraternity approach to friendship. The grouping is, of course, also excludes certain race and certain class as well. Certain people are allowed into the fraternity, are seen as part of the fraternity, and others are not. And that includes women, as I mentioned. It includes people of different races and people of different classes. and the like. Implicit within the idea of fraternity is the concept of white supremacy, class supremacy, privileging of friendship within those distinctions. And again, it is built upon the concept of exclusion. There's still men I know today who feel they can't be friends with women. For women are not part of that fraternity, and they're even dangerous to that fraternity. So the exclusions of the female or the women also go to men who take on certain characteristics or ideas that are supposed to be left to women. So that even men who feel for the suffering of others, men or women, who feel for the oppressed, who feel for those who are hurting in this world, and hurting because of a lack of fairness, a lack of opportunity for so many. These people also are excluded. I want to bring another area of exclusion in as well that I've seen. It's an exclusion that may be more subtle, but it's an exclusion of those who are oriented towards the arts. Our world is designed for those who are oriented towards business, who are oriented towards those kind of realms that are building up the capitalist world. And the arts can do that, but the arts also can challenge all of that. And the arts have suffered in our world. Funding for the arts is limited. And there are too many artists that are poor if they try to practice their art. So the fraternity, the philo, the brotherly love can also exclude the arts. A similar concept to the philo or fraternity that Derrida brings up is what he calls phallogocentrism. And that is a male supremacy expressed in language. And it's often seen in oppositions, male and female, nature, civilization, city, country, clean, dirty, white, colored, white, black, adventurer, explorer, colonizer, colonizer and colonized. All of these oppositions express what Derrida calls a phallogocentrism. And he becomes very aware of how embedded within language. Sometimes when you read Derrida, you wonder, well, how can we find a way through? How can we find a way through on this? Well, before we go there, I'm going to challenge it even more, using Derrida. Another concept that Derrida talks about in this book, and he talks about extensively, is built upon a German philosopher named Schmidt, a German philosopher who was very supportive of Nazism, but whose ideas we can see today are alive and well in the political realm. So alive and well that it's hard to see how you can escape them. And let me explain Schmidt's view of the political. Schmidt says that for the political to exist, you need an enemy And you need an enemy worth killing, an enemy worth destroying. So for the political to exist, to repeat this, you need to have an enemy that's worth killing and worth destroying. Well, we can see how Nazism picked up on this. But if you look at modern politics, especially during election time, you see that all of our politics is filled with this idea. Think of how many contexts there are where we're invited to see that there's an enemy and an enemy that must be destroyed. One of the most hidden ways that this happens, and particularly in my work, is the concept of the therapeutic, where the therapeutic is often seen as an identification of a pathology, problem, and then a plan that is put in place that destroys that pathology. It's still built upon a Schmittian model. It's also built upon a very Western religious model where there's sin and redemption, and sin has to be gotten rid of through a process of redemption. We must be very suspicious of this model, very suspicious of this idea that our work is to find out what is wrong in there and to find a way to get rid of it. Our work is so much more than that. I want to turn a bit of a corner with Derrida. Another concept that Derrida brings up is the concept of the secret. And the secret is something which, if heard, would be painfully loud. And the secret is found within the voices of those who have no voice, or the voices of those whose voices have been repressed. Derrida writes, to be ready to listen to the screaming chaos of the voiceless. Are we ready to listen to the screaming chaos of the voiceless? And that voiceless is human, and that voiceless also is beyond human. It's more than human. That more than human comes out a little bit because this writing, Derrida's statement about the screaming chaos of the voiceless, harkens me to George Eliot in Middlemarch. Now, George Eliot already is in the realm of the secret, because George Eliot was not a man. George Eliot was a woman writing as a man so that her books would be published. She had a secret that was very much understood by women and by people whose voices were not honored. This is, I want to read that statement by George Eliot. If we had a keen vision and feeling for all ordinary human life, it would be like listening to the grass grow and the squirrel's heartbeat, and we should die of that roar which lives on the other side of silence. Those of us who are in those helping professions, we are ones to listen to that roar. That's our work. That's an honorable work. To close, Derrida takes the concept of democracy and the concept of friendship, and he places it in a certain messianic context. That democracy is not here and now. It's not what we want it to be in the here and now. Democracy is to come. And we live always for a democracy to come, something more than the here and now. And the same with friendship. It's very hard for us to escape the fraternal element of friendship. But perhaps in the future, this will be possible. And the concept of perhaps became central to the work of Jacques Derrida. The word central he wouldn't use. Became important to the work of Jacques Derrida. And he often talks about it. As we talk about the future, we build into it the structure of the perhaps. Perhaps we might go this direction. Perhaps we might go this direction. Perhaps Derrida's ideas may influence your work as they've influenced mine. Perhaps somebody else's work is doing that for you. But I thank you for listening, and I encourage you to read that wonderful book by Jacques Derrida. And I'm going to close with a quote from it, and it's the last paragraph he wrote in the book. The democracy remains to come. This is its essence insofar as it remains. Not only will it remain indefinitely perfectible, hence always insufficient in future, but belonging to the time of the promise. It will always remain in each of its future times to come. Even when there is democracy, it never exists. It is never present. It remains the theme of a non-presentable concept. It is possible to open up to the come of a certain democracy, which is no longer an insult to the friendship we have striven to think, beyond the homo-fraternal and phallogocentric schema. The democracy to come, friendship to come. We live with our face in that direction. I hope you have a great day. Bye.